Nowadays, there are so few hand-drawn animated movies that whenever one comes anywhere close to a theater nearby me, I instantly check it out. I really wish there was more hand-drawn animation to support over shit like this. The Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim takes place 183 years before Fellowship and follows Héra, princess of Rohan and only daughter to King Helm Hammerhand, played by Brian Cox, as she helps defend their kingdom against Wolff, leader of the Hill tribe who seeks vengeance against Helm for the death of his father. Sounds simple but exciting, and should have been both of those things. So, I was originally considering reviewing the Rankin Bass Hobbit and Return of the King alongside Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, and upon watching them, it hit me that A, they're not very good movies, and B, they all kind of have the exact same problems. The pacing goes back and forth from being too rushed to needlessly drawn out and boring. The action was dull, the animation was beyond inconsistent. The only real saving grace was certain casting choices like Orson Bean as Bilbo, or John Hurt being a great Aragorn. So not only did it feel like I'd be repeating myself over and over, even if I made just one video about all of them, but I was fully prepared to say in this review that War of the Rohirrim would be the best animated Lord of the Rings, while also saying that's not really a huge accomplishment. Upon seeing War of the Rohirrim, I'm sad to say that this was so generic and boring and lifeless that I'd rather watch something as entertainingly bad and bonkers as the original Hobbit. This was directed by Kenji Kamiyama, who did Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, both the show and a couple of their movies, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that War of the Rohirrim has the look and feel of an anime TV movie, and honestly, the animation itself isn't technically bad. The designs all look fine. It has more bright, vibrant colors than most American animation, and the backgrounds themselves are nice to look at, but everything and everyone moves at a distractingly choppy pace, especially on a big screen. It was like watching a 30 frame per second clip rendered at 24, which would explain why so many characters make these awkward pauses in between sentences, or the action scenes themselves weren't that exciting. But then again, whether it was for budgetary reasons or to get a PG-13 or both, the action scenes in this were unbelievably tame. The amount of times someone got stabbed or sliced open, which, by the way, no one was allowed to have a full-fledged fight scene until the climax. Before that, it was one or two swings and instantly you're dead. But every time someone got killed, it would cut away to a reaction shot. You would only see their shoulder as they're getting murdered. Blood would spew out and it would look black, almost like it was in their shadow to avoid the gore. Everything just felt so anticlimactic. But even if this was a gorgeous movie to look at, even if the action scenes were totally awesome and worth the ticket price alone, this screenplay would still have the exact same storytelling mistake as the other animated ones. Way too much of it is all tell, no show, where nearly every line of dialogue is exposition from the characters or a narrator who pops up so infrequently I kept forgetting there even was a narrator. Which is weird because it's Miranda Otto playing Éowyn again. The amount of times characters in this explain their connections to one another rather than the movie actually showing what their relationships look like was so non-existent that half of their sentences start with saying each other's names, almost as if the filmmakers realized we weren't going to remember them as soon as the movie was over. Olwen, don't care. Freyof, already forgotten. Wolff, no relation. Hell, half the characters ranging from Héra's two brothers, the one cousin who's next in line for the throne, or this dipshit servant who's there just to be pussy comic relief every time he's afraid of something or falls on his ass, I forgot they were even in the movie halfway through. That's what little screen time or characterization they get. And as a result, the voice actors, no matter how hard they try, and my god are they trying, are stuck with a script that just makes them sound so bland and forgettable every time they speak. Brian Cox being the biggest missed opportunity. I swear, the only reason he's in this is because he was in Kamiyama's Blade Runner anime. Beyond that, Helm Hammerhand, the guy that Helm's Deep is named after, who should be this ultimate badass, noble, heroic leader, is a strict, short-tempered ruler who ignores his closest advisors, picks fights that lead to dire consequences. In this case, he brawls with a challenger to his throne and ends up killing him with a single punch in front of that guy's son, basically starting the events of the movie just like that. And of course, refuses to let Héra fight because he doesn't want her to die, even though he's let other women fight by his side and succeed in the past, including this random side girl boss who had her own all-female battalion and is the last of her kind. More on that shit later. But of course, after someone dies in combat, he learns the errors of his ways, and does this sound like any kind of ruler who would have this grand fortress, the very place where one of Middle-earth's most legendary battles ever took place, be named after him? I've never read the books, so I can't really say for sure, but I can only imagine how pissed off Tolkien fans would be about this. But seeing as how one of Éowyn's own narrations flat out say that Helm's story is already in the appendices, while Héra's story isn't, it's very clear that that was the intention. Yeah, let's just get this over with. A lot of people were already saying this before the movie came out, and it's absolutely true. This is yet another girl power message movie that, one, thinks it's revolutionary because a strong independent woman is the lead, even though this franchise already has Galadriel, Arwen, Éowyn, Tauriel, who are just as, if not more capable than the men, are already much more interesting and likable characters. But because Héra fights against the patriarchy and for her people, she's somehow instantly better and different and much more necessary. 2, her gender is her most defining character trait. 3, all the women in this are instantly smarter, stronger, and kinder, as opposed to the men being dumber, weaker, and/or sexist pieces of shit. And 4, has a main character who doesn't evolve or develop as a character, but everyone else discovers just how awesome she is. She's not the problem. She discovers self-actualization, and everybody else has to see the error in their ways and misjudging her. And yeah, she's the Mulan remake, Galadriel, Rey, all over again. She's not as stoic, angsty, or ungrateful as Galadriel, I will give her that, and there were scenes of her getting captured or losing swords in combat that could have humanized her, but much like Rey, those mistakes felt obligatory and pointless, considering how many times she gets out of these situations with so much ease to the point where she seems more lucky than she is strong and independent. There's a scene where she gets locked in a tower and she hesitates for a second to jump out a balcony, but 5 to 10 minutes later, when she has no choice, she does it anyways like it was nothing, and walks out of it without even a scratch. Or this one fight in a stable where after she loses her sword, she kills the guy with a pitchfork that was just laying there that the guy could have gotten rid of because he was waiting there to kill her. He already knows that she can fight. It makes about as much sense as the one time she picks off a war horn off of a dead body, blows into it in order to lure the enemies away, and somehow doesn't get a parasite infection. The actress who plays Héra made this interesting claim in an interview that Héra's more comparable to a Miyazaki hero like Nausicaa as opposed to Arwen or Éowyn. And the problem with that comparison is that characters like Kiki, Satsuki, Mei, San, Chihiro, Sophie, among many others, had actual personal flaws to overcome, like accepting responsibility, overcoming grief, facing fears in order to become the strong independent characters that could be relatable to anyone of any gender. Hell, Ponyo makes more sacrifices than this lady does. Ponyo at least gave up her magic in order to be a normal kid. And the more role model-ish characters in Studio Ghibli like Shida, Theo, or Nausicaa herself, they all had to go into life-threatening situations that they were completely unprepared for and could have lost at any moment in order to make certain risks that could benefit people less fortunate than them. And I would say that because this is a prequel, we already know that Héra's gonna make it out okay, but other than the villain hates her because she doesn't want to marry him, even though she doesn't want to marry anyone, and she gave you the scar on your face when you were kids, so she could already kick your ass back then. Why would a sexist piece of shit like you fall in love with a girl like that, let alone want to marry her? They don't give her anything to overcome. She doesn't have any negative personality traits like her father or her brothers do, where they have short tempers but high ambition. The people who die in this that were close to her, because they barely interacted, we don't feel her pain when she mourns their losses. Even when she loses a sword here and there, the 1 or 2 flashbacks we get of her training in combat, she was already a proficient fighter, so any chance we get to see her struggle or learn to be a proficient hero is completely gone. Why should I worry? Why should I care about anything that happens to her? If there was anything I liked about the movie, Stephen Gallagher's musical score was the only epic thing about it, and the closest aspect that actually resembled the Peter Jackson movies that they desperately used in the advertising to suck you in, and even try to quote an homage towards the end, right down to 3 seconds of Christopher Lee recordings from The Hobbit that were clearly never meant to be used and had more than one sentence that they clumsily edited out. But the animated Lord of the Rings movies, for all their faults, always had great music. But yeah, honestly, War of the Rohirrim should have been, at the very least, an entertaining movie. You can take so much from Tolkien's appendices and keep them faithful in the movies while still expanding upon them. Have Helm be the same heroic leader he was in the books while expanding upon Héra's story. You don't need to dumb one down over the other, but they went for the petty routine, and judging by the box office and the reviews, people are fucking sick of this crap. And with that, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below, would you fought a War of the Rohirrim? What's your favorite animated Lord of the Rings movie? Because it's quite a choice, isn't it? Whatever it is, let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee. And I'll see you all in the next review. Take care.